Gentlewoman is recognized.
St. Louis House Democrats and I rise today to strongly oppose H.R. 347, the Reduce Exacerbated Inflation Negatively Impacting the Nation Act. While Democrats passed numerous laws last Congress that are successfully reducing inflation every month, House Republicans have come up with nothing more than a study in response. This is unbelievable. The substance and process of this bill amount to nothing more than political theater to distract from and undermine the immense successes of congressional Democrats and the Biden administration. If Republicans were serious about fighting inflation and cutting costs for regular, everyday people, they would have joined with Democrats to pass critical legislation like the Inflation Reduction Act to rebuild American manufacturing and lower the cost of prescription drugs, health care, energy, and other goods and services for the people of our country, rather than pushing an extreme MAGA messaging bill that accomplishes nothing. Nothing, not a thing. The global spike in inflation has been caused by food and fuel disruptions resulting from the illegal and unprovoked Russian invasion of Ukraine, as well as auto part supply shortages connected to the COVID-19 pandemic. There is no evidence that government spending or executive orders by President Biden have increased inflation. The president and congressional Democrats have taken steps to enact policies, not studies, not reports, but actual tangible policies and dollars delivered to our communities to lower costs for regular everyday people. Yet, we understand still much more work remains. For over 20 years, while I was a single mother of two, I experienced countless times what it was like to see costs rise faster than my wages. I know what it's like to have to choose between paying the electric bill or paying rent. I remember thinking to myself, who is it that is fighting for me and for other people in my situation? Lawmakers in Congress can help alleviate that pain. Lawmakers in Congress can prioritize enacting policies to raise wages and lower costs. And that is what congressional Democrats have done. For so many people in my community of St. Louis and around the country, skyrocketing rents and high utility costs are consistent barriers to keeping families safe and fed. And that is a moral and policy failure. We've seen how people's lives improved when the federal government stepped up to enact a moratorium on evictions or sent urgently needed stimulus checks to families or expanded the child tax credit or capped insulin at $35 a month. Those are the actions that saved lives. That's what we need, and we need more of that now. But here we have a report. However, what my House Republican colleagues have demonstrated this Congress and what they are demonstrating here today with this bill is that they are not serious about governing. They've circumvented regular order to bring this hollow bill to a vote on the House floor, even as people continue to suffer the consequences of inflation and flawed responses that exacerbate unemployment. Corporations, especially in the energy industry, have capitalized on this crisis to raise prices for everyday people and for families. Last year, Exxon made $56 billion in profits, using inflation as a cover to fleece regular everyday people just trying to get to medical appointments or to school. I oppose this bill because I'm aware of what it is. It's a distraction from our work for our constituents. It's a waste of government resources, and it's a squandering of time that we should be using to rein in corporate greed and support those of our neighbors who need our help the most. I oppose this bill because it isn't a meaningful way to legislate. It is a political stunt. Over the past 2 years, Through the Inflation Reduction Act, the American Rescue Plan, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, and other successes, Democrats and President Biden have made historic investments in public transit, renewable energy, health care, and economic stability. We have created jobs. We have advanced justice. We have advanced equity. We have reduced greenhouse gas emissions, and we have slowed down inflation. We put hundreds of dollars in people's pockets. We capped the price of insulin. We invested in people. As a result, when adjusted for inflation, wages have risen for so many families over the last 7 months, and unemployment remains at its lowest level since 1969. However, we need to do so much more. Many of our neighbors, particularly those with the greatest need, are suffering from the consequences of high costs across the board. I'm glad House Democrats controlled the House during the pandemic. This bill makes a mockery of people living in poverty who need meaningful relief. The Republicans' big idea, the big plan that we've been told about and waiting on, is to write a flawed bill that mandates, guess what? More paperwork. Give me a break, as my ranking member just said. I know what it's like to be at risk of eviction. I know what it's like to be hungry. I know what it's like to be cold, so cold that you don't know if you'll survive the night. Never one time when I was living out of my car with my 2 babies did I ask for a report from Congress for help. I needed diapers. I needed food. You can't eat a report. If this bill was to move forward, no one will be saying, I'm so glad I used this report to pay the rent. Let me take shelter with this report because Congress did their job. Let's take real actual care of the people. I oppose this bill, and I yield back.